over to you.
Okay, perfect.
Alrighty. So good morning and welcome to this month's meetings of the City of Lakeland Historic Preservation Board and Design Review Committee. The board and committee meet every fourth Thursday of the month to review proposals for changes to properties located within the city's 7 historic districts and buildings designated as local landmarks, as well as hear nominations for new historic designations, consistent with the city's historic preservation standards. The board is made up of 10 citizens appointed by the City Commission and is assisted by the staff of the Community and Economic Development Department. The Design Review Committee is a standing subcommittee of the board and has 7 members. The first meeting consists of the Historic Preservation Board agenda, where business of the board is handled, including recommendations of new historic designations. The second meeting consists of the Design Review Committee agenda and involves acting on recommendations from staff regarding certificate of review applications for major work proposed to properties within the historic districts or local landmark buildings. This meeting is the first Historic Preservation Board meeting conducted entirely online and via telephone, and we have made accommodations for everyone who wishes to participate to be heard. Public input is welcomed for items on the Design Review Committee's agenda. We ask that all members of the public wait to call in until the Design Review Committee agenda item of interest is being discussed. A phone number and access code will be displayed on the live broadcast for callers to use when calling into the meeting. Please be aware that callers will have 5 minutes to speak on each item. We do ask that public comment be kept brief and that speakers avoid being repetitive with any comments. We thank you for your interest and participation. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to our chairman, Mr. Tim Calhoun.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call of the members. So again, affirm that you are here, please, because I can't see everybody at once. Tim Calhoun, obviously here. Kyle Klein. Make sure to unmute yourself, guys, okay? Lynn Dennis.
Yes, here.
Here. Thank you, Lynn. Dan Fowler.
Here.
Jeremy Moses. I show he's here, but muted.
Right.
Okay. Jeremy, you're here?
He is. He just needs to unmute.
Okay. Ursula Radaba.
Here.
Okay. Melinda Rinker.
Here.
Nick Thomas.
Here.
Hey, Nick. Linda Trumbull.
Here.
Hey, Linda. And then John White.
Here.
Okay, so everybody is here and present. First order of business would be review and approval of the February 27, 2020 Historic Preservation Board minutes.
Move for approval.
Approval of the minutes.
That's John.
Yes.
Linda, second.
Yes.
Do we have any discussion? Okay, we're going to go ahead and do a roll call vote. So again, make sure you're unmuted so that I can hear you. So this will be for approval, yay or nay. Tim Calhoun would be a yay. Kyle Klein.
For the motion.
Lynn Dennis.
Yay.
Yay. Dan Fowler.
Yay.
Jeremy Moses.
Yay.
Ursula Radaba.
Yay.
Melinda Rinker.
Yay.
Nick Thomas.
Yay.
Linda Trumbull.
Yay.
And then Mr. John White again.
Yay.
So minutes are approved and passed. So old business and new business, we're going to go ahead and switch over to Emily, and she'll update us on the old and the new business. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So an update on our design guidelines project. According to our consultant team, the design guidelines document is approximately 65% complete. A significant amount of new content has been added and continued with text and graphic revisions since the last draft was published. As you are aware, a significant part of the project is being done by faculty and graduate students at USF School of Architecture and Community Design. And currently all state universities are closed now. Classes are proceeding online only. Telecommuting has impacted the project workflow over the last month. Even with remote technology, collaboration is taking a lot more time than expected. As such, a 60-day extension to the project deadline was requested by our consultant team and has been granted. This moves the project deadline from April 30th to June 30th. And I have reviewed the latest draft document, and it is meeting all of our expectations for the project. Once the document has been completed to 100%, it will be emailed to the Historic District, or excuse me, Historic Design Guidelines Review Committee for your review. So that's the latest update on this project, and I'd be glad to answer any questions from the board members.
Dan Fowler has his hand raised.
Emily, could you kindly send out the 60% documents so we can begin to get a feel for the direction that they're going?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you. Or a link online or whatever is the easiest.
Right, I'll send you a link just because the document size is rather large.
Yep. Thank you.
That's great. Dan, that was a good idea to try and start this because I think it's going to be, as Emily said, a large document. So I think it's a good idea to start looking at it now. All right, any additional questions? No hands raised, Jonathan?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on to new business then. Emily?
Alrighty, and this is just a brief announcement that the Historic Lakeland Incorporated Preservation Awards ceremony, it's normally held in May. Obviously, with the pandemic situation, they've postponed it. So it is now scheduled for Monday, November 9th at the Polk Theater. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Any additional new business or questions? All right, then I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
That was Linda.
That was Lynn.
And the second?
I'll second it.
That was,
John.
okay. John for second, Linda first. Okay, so Emily, I have to do the roll call for the yeas and the nays, correct?
Correct.
Okay, we'll go back down again. So Tim Calhoun, yay. Kyle?
Yay.
Lynn Dennis?
Yay.
Dan Fowler?
Yay.
Jeremy Moses?
Yay.
Ursula Radabaugh?
Yay.
Melinda Rinker?
Yay.
Nick Thomas?
Yay.
Linda Trumbull?
Yay.
And John White?
Yay.
Okay, so the April 22nd, 23rd Historic Preservation Board meeting is adjourned. Move on to the Design Review Committee.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Emily, do you need to do your preamble again?
No, you're free to proceed.
All right. We will call to order the April 23rd, 2020 City of Lakeland Historic Preservation Board Design Review Committee meeting. We'll start with a roll call. Kyle Klein, here. Tim Calhoun.
Here.
Lynn Dennis.
Here.
Dan Fowler.
Here.
Ursula Radabaugh.
Here.
Linda Trumbull.
Here.
Nick Thomas.
Here.
And present but not voting members, Jeremy Moses. Here. Melinda Rinker.
Here.
John White.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. We have a full house, actually. Before us are the minutes, before you are the minutes for the February 27th, 2020 meeting for your review and approval. I'll ask for a motion.
Move for approval.
We have a motion by Lynn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who is that?
Linda Trumbull.
Okay, second by Linda. Any debate or questions, concerns, comments? Okay, then we'll vote. And we'll do a roll call vote. So the question before us is to approve the February 27th, 2020 meeting minutes. Kyle Klein is for the motion. Tim Calhoun,
For the motion as well.
Lynn Dennis,
For the motion.
Dan Fowler,
For the motion.
Ursula Radeball,
For the motion.
Linda Trumbull,
For the motion.
and Nick Thomas.
For the motion.
So the meeting minutes from 27th of February are approved. We had between February 18th and April 13th, we had 28 cases, certificates of review administratively approved. I'll let Emily answer any questions you all have on that.
And if you could raise your hand if you have a question, that would be appreciated.
I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our public hearing portion of the meeting. Before we get started, Emily, are the applicants on the phone, I guess? Is that what? Yeah, okay, I see.
Yes.
All right, so the first case before us, today we have three cases. The first case before us is HPB 20-031. Address is 1130 Ruby Street. The owner and applicant is Mr. Derek McWaters. Subject property is a vacant 0.16 acre parcel at Lake Hunter Terrace Historic District. And the applicant is requesting final approval to construct a one-story single-family home containing 1,629 square feet of living space. Before we get started, any conflicts of interest from board members? I guess raise your hand if you have a conflict of interest. Seeing none.
No hands, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Seeing none, Emily, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next slide, please. Okay, as Mr. Klein stated, the subject property is a vacant lot of record in the Lake Hunter Terrace Historic District and consists of 0.16 acres. This block does not feature an alley to the rear of the lots. Next slide. The applicant proposes to build a one-story single-family house on the subject property, which will have a total living area of 1,629 square feet. The design of the house reflects a frame vernacular aesthetic with a double gable front roof and hipped rear roof, a front porch supported by square columns, and an integrated porch on the rear elevation. Next slide, please. And this slide simply shows the floor plan for the home. Next slide. Materials proposed for this house include a concrete slab foundation at grade, hardy lap siding with hardy shake siding in the front gables and hardy material trim and casing, hardy fascia and soffit, an architectural asphalt shingle roof with an 8/12 pitch, vinyl double hung sash windows with a 4/4 light configuration, and the paired windows will have a 3-inch wide dividing mullion. And the doors will be fiberglass with a half light front door and a full light rear door. The front porch columns will be wrapped with hardy material, and finally a concrete driveway will be used on the property. Next slide, please. The site plan submitted for the requested project shows orientation of the front facade towards Ruby Street. Building setbacks shown include a front setback of 20 feet, a west side setback of 14.8 feet, an east side setback of 7 feet, and a rear setback of 55.8 feet. As this property does not have an alley to its rear, a driveway is proposed along the west side of the lot. Next slide, please. To evaluate this request, Secretary of Standards 9 and 10 and Chapter 4 of the design guidelines were used. Next slide. The 1100 block of Ruby Street features modest single-family houses, many of which are variations of the bungalow, frame vernacular, and modern masonry styles. These photos show the houses on either side of the subject property. Next slide, please. As such, staff finds that the proposed house features a neo-traditional design resembling the frame vernacular style and will not adversely affect the historic or architectural character of the Lake Hunter Terrace Historic District due to its compatible massing and scale of building elements. Details such as the gable front roof, lap and shake siding, corner boards, frieze boards, simple columns, and a half-light front door are consistent with the frame vernacular style as well as the design guidelines. Staff also finds the proposed materials are consistent with contributing buildings in the Lake Hunter Terrace neighborhood and our design guidelines. Next slide, please. However, for further compatibility with the houses adjacent to the subject property, staff recommends the pitch of the roof be lowered to 7/12. Next slide. Casing and trim detail around the windows and doors is an appropriate dimension, and the scale of the building's fenestration is compatible with that of nearby historic residential buildings. However, staff recommends using a window with a 3 or 4/1 light configuration for the appearance of a vertically oriented pane of glass, as well as consistency with the frame vernacular aesthetic. This divided light appearance should be replicated for the windows on the sides of the home. Staff also recommends that the glazing in the front door either match the divided light appearance of the windows or not have a divided light appearance. Next slide, please. And for compliance with the Land Development Code's urban form standards, as well as the design guidelines, the depth of the front porch must be increased to at least 8 feet, and the foundation's height above grade must be at least 21 inches. Next slide, please. Placement of the house on the subject property is consistent with both the Land Development Code and design guidelines in terms of orientation and building setbacks. Additionally, Additionally, the driveway as shown on the site plan is appropriate in width at approximately 10 feet wide and placement to the side of the lot. Next slide, please. So as the request meets the intent of the standards and design guidelines for new construction, staff recommends approval of the request with the following conditions to be reviewed and approved at staff level prior to permitting. Number 1, use a vertically oriented window pane configuration consistent with the frame vernacular style. Use either a divided light appearance in the front door matching the window pane configuration or clear glazing in the front door. Number 3, ensure that the porch columns are aligned properly with the upper beam entablature. Number 4, lower the roof pitch to 7/12. Number 5, increase the front porch depth to at least 8 feet. Number 6, ensure the height of the finished floor foundation is at least 21 inches above grade. And number 7, provide body trim and accent paint colors for the exterior of the house to staff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Emily. Is the applicant on the phone? Do they have
Yes,
anything to
Mr.
add?
Chair, I have Mr. McWaters on the line.
Okay.
Mr. McWaters, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. McWaters. Do you understand, have you talked to the staff and understand their recommendations? And do you have any comment or questions?
I haven't spoke to anyone before this meeting about the recommendations, but basically it's just foundation 21 inches above grade, and as far as the windows and doors, I don't think that'll be a problem. And extended the front porch out, I don't know, another 16 inches, I think. That's about it. Okay.
And then the porch columns alignment, do you understand that?
No, I don't. I'm looking at the front elevation now. What do you mean by that?
Emily, don't you have it marked up or just highlighted on your staff report you just showed on here? I don't recall.
Yeah, I didn't mark it up on the drawings itself, but it's just, it's basically offsetting the capital of the column from the beam slightly so that there's a little bit of an overlap, just to provide a classical entablature.
Okay, we can work with that. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Okay, anything else on that?
Can you email me that, Emily, by chance? A
Yes.
drawing on that? Okay, that'd be great.
Yes, I can do that.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. McWaters. Right now, we'll ask for any public comment for support or opposition, if there's any out there.
Mr. Chair, I don't see any calls that have come in for this item.
Okay, so we need to rebuttal then. Okay, then at this point we are going to call for committee members to ask any questions of staff or the applicant.
Mr. Fowler's hand is raised.
Mr. Fowler?
Thank you. Can you go back to the slide showing the roof pitch, please? Next, there was one that showed it. There we go. Relationship to the 712. What's the pitch of the house, just existing house on the right? It looks to me like the proposed roof pitch kind of fits within the pattern of the existing homes on each side of it. Any thoughts from others on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree looking at these pictures. So as it's proposed, this is 812, I believe, right?
Correct.
Because on the left, the home has a greater pitch apparently than the one on the right. I don't know what the homeowner intends for the attic space, but the greater the pitch, you have more space for storage or what have you. I think aesthetically it looks fine to me.
It actually, it's a difference of just a few inches on a 30-foot wide plan.
Right.
I mean, when we're talking about like 2 or 3 inches difference in elevation. And I'll be quite honest with you, you couldn't tell the difference between a 7 or 8 unless you actually probably walked on it.
Sure.
So it's fine, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter to me. Like I said, it's a difference of just a couple of inches on a short span like that.
Emily, where does the 712 come from?
That was just a matter of trying to make the roof pitch compatible with its neighbors, the two houses on either side of the property. I estimate the bungalow, which is the picture on the right side of the slide, to be around a 5/12, and probably on the left side, it's probably a 7/12 pitch, at least the front gables. I'm not sure about that side gable. So it was just an attempt to remain compatible and not to overwhelm the neighbors with the tallness of the roof.
Plus, Emily, if you're asking me to raise the foundation 21 inches out of the ground, then that's actually going to put that roof, taller in the air. So I'd say go with a 712 to just make it look a little bit more compatible, because you're right. A smaller plan like this will look like it just pushes the sky.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. McWaters.
Mr. Chair, I believe Ms. Reinker raised her hand.
No.
Oh, she's shaking her head no.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Okay. So the applicant's okay with the 712, given the raising the elevation. Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing portion of this case. So any discussion or a motion from the committee?
I move for approval with staff recommendations.
We have a motion from Lynn.
I will second.
We have a second from Tim. Any discussion from committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a vote. The question before us is to approve case HPB 20-031 as submitted with staff recommendations. We'll take a roll call vote. Kyle Klein is for the motion. Tim Calhoun.
I'm for the motion.
Lynn Dennis.
For the motion.
Dan Fowler.
For the motion.
Ursula Radeball.
For the motion.
Linda Trumbull.
For the motion.
Nick Thomas.
For the motion.
So it's approved as submitted with staff recommendations. Thank you, Mr. McWaters. Okay, second case is sorry, bear with me. I'm juggling paper here. Second case, HPV 20-032. The address is 601 Ariana Street. The owner is KMH Holdings of Lakeland, LLC. The applicant is Mr. Joshua Hamilton of Holbert Homes, Inc. The subject property is a 0.229 acre parcel consisting of 2 lots of record in the Dixieland Historic District, containing a 1-story frame vernacular house built circa 1925, which is classified as non-contributing. And the applicant is requesting final approval to demolish the existing home and to construct 2 new single-family homes on the property. So we'll need 2 motions on this one, just FYI, 1 to demolish, and then they're asking for final approval. So I guess we're going to have 3 motions, correct, Emily? 1 to demolish and 1 for each house?
Yes, you could do it that way.
Okay, and that's the way we're going to do it. Any conflicts of interest from board members? Seeing none raised. Emily, go ahead.
I thought this has already been demolished. It's maybe, I thought, according to the notes, demolition was already completed April 1st, 2020. Do we still have to approve it?
I don't, probably for formality's sake, you do need to approve demolition or vote on demolition, I should say.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So the subject property is located at the northwest corner of Ariana Street and Ohio Avenue and consists of 0.29 acres. This property is also known as lots 27 and 28 of Block P within the Dixieland subdivision. An improved alley exists along the northern boundary of the subject property. Next slide, please. A 1-story frame vernacular house existed on the subject property, which had an estimated construction date of 1925. This house was classified as a non-contributing building in the Dixieland Historic District, likely due to many insensitive alterations, including replacement windows, an alteration of window openings, replacement siding, and building additions. Also existing on the subject property were 2 accessory structures which appear to have been constructed in the mid-1920s to 1930s and were also considered to be non-contributing. Next slide, please. The March 26, 2020 Historic Preservation Board and Design Review Committee meetings were canceled due to the pandemic. On March 18th, Mr. Mark Colbert requested that demolition be permitted to proceed due to code enforcement violations related to this property. Because of the non-contributing status of the house and accessory buildings, the concern for public safety, staff support for demolition, and the pending review and approval for the proposed new construction, staff obtained approval for expedited demolition from Nicole Travis, the Director of Community and Economic Development, and demolition of the house and accessory structures was completed on April 1st. Next slide, please. To replace the non-contributing structures, 2 new single-family houses are proposed to be built on the subject property, with the lots proposed to be subdivided back to the historical platted lot lines. Next slide, please. A 2-story single-family house is proposed to be built on the corner lot, which will have 2,098 square feet of living space. This home features a neo-traditional design with a hip roof and gable front L. Its hipped roof front porch is supported by tapered columns on brick plinths. Next slide, please. This slide shows the elevation drawings for the 2-story residence. Next slide. For the interior lot, a 1-story single-family house with 1,778 square feet of living space is proposed. This home features a frame vernacular aesthetic with a hip roof and gable porch supported by tapered columns on brick plinths. Next slide, please. This slide shows the elevation drawings for the 1-story residence. Both houses have a small integrated patio on the rear elevation, as well as an attached 2-car garage that is accessible from the alley. Next slide. Materials proposed for the new homes include a concrete stem wall with raised foundation. Sand textured cementitious coating will be used on the exterior of both foundations. Exterior cladding will consist of hardy lap siding with a 6-inch exposure, as well as hardy shake siding in the front gable of the 1-story home. A sand texture cementitious coating will be used on the ground floor of the 2-story home. Hardy trim, frieze boards, corner boards, and casing will be used on both homes. Windows are proposed to be aluminum single hung sash with a 3/1 light configuration. One fixed aluminum window will be used at the rear of the two-story house. And doors will consist of a fiberglass quarter light front door and full light rear door. Steel garage doors with a raised panel design are proposed in the garages, of course. And asphalt architectural shingles, as well as hardy material fascia and soffit, will be used on the roofs of both homes, which have a 5/12 pitch. Finally, the front porches will have a finished concrete floor and steps and wood-wrapped tapered columns with brick plinths. Next slide, please. The site plan proposed for the new houses shows orientation of the front facades towards Ariana Street, with the attached garages oriented to the alley. The proposed building setbacks for both houses meet the Land Development Code's urban neighborhood standards. Next slide, please. This request was evaluated using the Historic Preservation Standards Demolition Considerations, Secretary Standards 9 and 10, and Chapter 4 of the Design Guidelines. Next slide, please. For the committee members' knowledge, the request to demolish the house and accessory structures satisfied all three considerations for demolition per the Historic Preservation Standards. As previously stated, demolition was expedited and approved by the Director of Community and Economic Development due to code violations and public safety concerns, staff support for demolition, and the fact that the proposed new construction was pending design review approval from the committee. These structures were demolished on April 1st. Next slide, please. In evaluating the design of the proposed new houses, the historic context of adjacent properties was considered. Adjacent to the subject property along Ariana Street exist several single-family, one-story houses that exhibit the bungalow frame vernacular and modern masonry vernacular styles. Next slide, please. Staff finds that the proposed new houses are similar in massing and scale to contributing bungalow and frame vernacular houses throughout the Dixieland Historic District. The building form, scale, and proportion of architectural elements, including roof pitch and floor-to-ceiling heights, is compatible with adjacent structures. Next slide, please. The attached garages are appropriately placed on the rear elevation of the new homes, and the increased depth of these structures is mitigated by the integrated back porches, which provide a visual break in the wall's horizontal plane. The multiple roof pitches of the two-story home, as viewed from the east or right side elevation, also provides visual interest and breaks up the horizontal massing along the street side yard. Next slide, please. Staff also finds that the proposed materials are consistent with the residences in the surrounding neighborhood and the design guidelines. The designs of both houses feature a neo-traditional style that is compatible with the architectural character of the district. Details such as the hip roof with the gable L, lap siding and corner boards, tapered columns on brick plinths, and 3/1 windows are consistent with historic architectural styles found in the neighborhood, as well as with the design guidelines. Fenestration and trim are also compatible. Next slide, please. Finally, the proposed placement of the house on the lot is consistent with the design guidelines and urban form standards in terms of orientation, building setbacks, foundation height, porch depth, and placement of the parking. Next slide. So as the request satisfied the considerations for demolition and the proposed new construction meets the standards and design guidelines, staff recommends final approval with the following conditions to be reviewed and approved by staff prior to permitting. Number 1, windows must have exterior mounted muntins. Number 2, windows must be recessed to provide a shadow line and not installed flush to the exterior wall surface. Number 3, clad the foundation of the front porches with brick to match column plinths. And number 4, provide an exterior paint color palette, including body trim and accent colors. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Emily. The applicant on the phone.
Mr. Chairman, I have Joshua Hamilton and Mark Holbert on the line.
Great. Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us this morning. Have you had a chance to review the staff recommendations, and do you have anything to add or questions?
Mark or Joshua, you're unmuted. Go ahead and speak.
I understand all 4 items. Mark, do you have any comments?
Can you hear me?
I can
Yes, sir.
faintly hear you.
Very.
No, I have no comments. The four items seem reasonable. I think we've done a couple of them, but we'll have to look at the windows where it says must have exterior mounted muttons. The muttons are actually inside the glass because it's double paned window. I just want to make sure that that's okay.
Emily?
Mr. Holbert, this is Emily Foster. We typically request that the windows have exterior mounted grids. They can have the sandwiched grids as well, but the exterior grids are there to provide a shadow line consistent with historic properties.
Okay, I can definitely check on it. I don't know if my supplier has that as an option, but if it is, that's certainly not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any public comment for or in opposition of this?
I don't see any calls, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the committee members? Linda?
Yeah, Linda.
Yes, I just wanted to verify on the exterior grids. I mean, if that line of windows they've ordered don't provide those, then what?
Okay.
So the option would be if they can't provide an exterior mounted muntin for a divided light or a simulated divided light appearance, they could do just a 1/1 window without a divided light appearance.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public hearing portion of this case. Emily, housekeeping here. Do we really need to do a demolition vote since it's already torn down?
I honestly, I don't think you need to do 3 separate votes. If there's, concurrency on agreement with the recommendation.
You want a demolition vote? You want us to vote on demolition?
Yes, I would include that. Like I said, if you could just do one motion and one vote for all 3 items,
Okay.
if that's what the committee desires.
I understand. Okay. Any discussion on this? Look for a motion.
I'll make the first motion to approve the demolition of the property. That's
If
Tim.
If you'd like, you can include one big motion.
Okay. I could amend it and basically say I approve. I offer a motion to approve the demolition and the construction of the, you want them all separate, right, Emily?
No.
You don't have to do it separately if you don't want to.
I could go ahead and make a motion to approve as per staff recommendations.
Yes.
Yes, you could.
Okay, here? Okay. Then I will make that motion to approve as per staff recommendations with the caveat of coming back to Emily regarding the windows.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so the question before us is to approve demolition and the houses as submitted with staff recommendations. I guess I got to do a roll call vote. Sorry. Kyle Klein for the motion. Tim Calhoun.
For the motion.
Lynn Dennis.
For the motion.
Dan Fowler.
For the motion.
Ursula Radeball.
For the motion.
Linda Trumbull.
For the motion.
Nick Thomas.
For the motion.
Motion passes. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, so our third and final case today is HPB 20-052, and the address is 201 Hunter Street, and the owner applicant is Mr. Mario Falcon, The subject property is 0.33 acre parcel consisting of 2 lots of record in the Dixieland Historic District, containing a 2-story frame vernacular house built circa 1915, which is classified as contributing. The applicant is requesting final approval to construct a 360 square foot addition on the east side of the house. Any conflicts of interest from board members? Seeing none, Emily, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next slide, please. The subject property is an interior parcel consisting of 2 lots of record in the Dixieland subdivision, approximately 0.33 acres in size. Next slide, please. Located on the subject property is a 2-story frame vernacular house built circa 1915, which is a contributing building in the Dixieland Historic District. The house features a hipped roof, full-width front porch in combination with a side-gabled porte-cochere, flat siding and corner boards, and double-hung sash windows with a 1/1 pane configuration. Next slide, please. The request proposes to build an addition 360 square feet in size that will extend from the east side of the existing house behind the porte-cochere. This addition will accommodate additional dining room and closet space. Next slide, please. The addition will be constructed of typical wood framing on a concrete pier foundation and will feature a shed roofline. Hardy plank siding with a 5-inch exposure will be used on the addition, as well as hardy trim, corner boards, and window casing in dimensions and profiles to complement the house. Asphalt architectural shingles matching the house will also be used. Vinyl single-hung sash windows with a 4/4 light configuration are proposed. Next slide, please. In evaluating this request, Secretary Standards 9 and 10 and Chapter 5 of the design guidelines were used. Next slide, please. Staff finds that the addition does not disturb the spatial relationships of the house and the essential form and integrity is maintained. New but similar materials will be used, which will provide some differentiation between the original house and the addition. Staff also finds that the materials of the proposed addition reflect the original materials of the house and are compatible. The design of trim, windows, doors, roof pitch, and overhang are consistent with the style of the subject house and guidelines. Furthermore, the addition is appropriately placed to the rear of the home's east elevation and has an appropriate setback from the front facade and porte-cochere. Next slide, please. And finally, the proposed addition meets the building setback requirements of the Land Development Code. And next slide, please. So as the request meets the intent of the standards and design guidelines, staff recommends final approval of the request with the following conditions to be reviewed by staff prior to permitting. Use 1/1 windows without a simulated divided light appearance to reflect the light configuration of the existing windows on the house. And number 2, recess the windows to provide a shadow line. Windows should not be flush mounted. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Emily. Is the applicant on the line?
Yes, I have Mario Falcon on the line. Go ahead, Mario.
Good morning,
I'm here.
Mr. Falcon.
Morning.
Do you have any questions or comments regarding the staff recommendation?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay, you understand everything, the items she's saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Great. All right. At this time, do we have any public comment for or against this case?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Seeing none, how about committee members? Any discussion? Melinda, go ahead.
Just a quick question. Can we go back and take a look at the drawing showing what the windows that they wanted versus what the house has currently? Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks. That's all.
All right. Any other discussion by committee? Go ahead, Nick. You're muted.
Does the siding on the existing house go as low as the siding does on that expansion? I couldn't find an image to see.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the exposure of the existing siding. It looks like a wider siding.
Okay.
But I don't know an exact dimension.
That'd be my only comment, that the siding stop at the same height as the existing building and not lower if that's the case.
Ah, okay.
All right. Anything else? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing portion of this case. Any discussion or ask for a motion from the committee? Anybody? Motion?
I make a motion for final approval as per staff recommendations. This is Tim.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Okay, go ahead, Melinda. You're muted. Okay.
Do we need to do something as far as the height of the siding in with that motion at all?
Tim's motion did not include that, but so no, it'll be noted in the minutes. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, the question is before us is to approve case HPB 20-052 per estimated with per staff and staff recommendation. Roll call. Kyle Klein for the motion. Tim Calhoun.
For the motion.
Lynn Dennis.
For the motion.
Ursula Radeball.
For the motion.
Linda Trumbull.
For the motion.
Nick Thomas.
For the motion.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Falcon. All right.
Mr. Klein,
Yes, sir.
I believe you forgot me.
God gummit. Dan Fowler.
For the motion.
So that the motion really passes this time. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you. And that will conclude our cases today. We have no new business, and so I'll stand for a motion to be adjourned.
So moved.
We have a motion by Lynn. I guess I got to do a roll call vote. Kyle Klein for the motion. Tim Calhoun.
For the motion.
Lynn Dennis.
For the motion.
Dan Fowler.
For the motion.
Well, you don't have anything to do today. You might want to just stay on here. Ursula Radeball.
For the motion.
Linda Trumbull.
For the motion.
Nick Thomas.
For the motion.
And we stand adjourned. All right.
Thank you very much.